Hi, this is Ralph Wilson with Web Marketing Today. I'm in Las Vegas at the PubCon conference with Glenn Alsup, who's an expert in the area of usability. And we've been talking about what are the kind of best practices in usability. You came up with 6 of these that really kind of bottom line. The first one is common sense. So what do you mean by common sense as far as usability?
Well, I'd certainly make sure that you identify any broken links.
Okay.
Make sure that formatting is such on text that people can read it.
Okay.
So it's just
kind of the duh.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Now, familiarity. What do you mean by that?
Familiarity would be, I would recommend that people try to use icons and metaphors that people are familiar with. So an example might be an expanding, collapsing menu structure and using the same file icons that Windows or Microsoft uses because people tend to be familiar with that, having used it on their desktop.
Okay. So the idea is you don't want to be so creative they don't know where you're going with this.
That's right.
Now, what color should a link be so people can tell it's a link?
Oh, that's a very good question. I would recommend that it is at least identified with an underline on it, because most people, when they see an underline, recognize that it's a link.
I've seen a lot of people abuse that. They get creative, but then they take away what people are familiar with and used to.
Right.
So the idea is use the conventions we've got set up.
Years ago, we saw lots of metaphors like, let's say, taking the solar system and using it for your navigational structure, and Pluto was products and Mars was services.
I fortunately didn't see that one.
Those days are over.
Now, navigation, what are some best practices there?
Oh, well, navigation, I would make sure that we have a sitemap. I would make sure that there was a breadcrumb trail.
Now, what is a breadcrumb trail, for those that don't know?
A breadcrumb trail is, typically you think of a breadcrumb trail as where you've been, but most people will use a breadcrumb trail with the analogy of the vertical navigation within the menu hierarchy.
So in other words, there's home, there's the sectional page, then there's if it's only 3 levels, then there's the page that you're on. So it shows the level so you can tell kind of where you are in the site.
Think about it like, let's say you're here in Las Vegas and the taxi driver puts you in the trunk of the car and they unload you somewhere and you have to get to the airport. They let you out of the trunk of the car. Typically you'll use the signs and the roads to figure out how to get to the airport.
So the purpose of this is when they come to your site, they don't get lost, and they may be able to go to other parts of your site once they've landed there.
Yes.
Okay. Now, you mentioned simplicity as an important kind of best practice. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think that it's important to keep the site as simple as possible and not get complex in the presentation layer for the customer.
I've seen a lot of designers really go to town on a site, but it's confusing.
Mm-hmm.
They make it not simple, they make it complex.
I've even seen cases where the navigation is hidden under layers, and I call it mystery navigation. So that you can't really find where you're going because you can't figure out how to use the graphical experience that the designers have created.
So make it simple.
Yes.
And you mentioned now response time as another one of these best practices.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I think you only have your customer for a certain period of time, and you want to make sure that they're not waiting and that you lose them.
So what are some things you should do?
I would limit the large files, large downloads for images, not multiple images, so I wouldn't put 10, 20 images on the page, and also just for simplicity, I wouldn't scroll a lot, and I wouldn't put a large amount of content on a single page.
Okay. I've found that a lot of times designers, the people that design the websites, have large screens and have very fast internet connections.
Very good point.
but the end users may not. Some of them may be in offices and they have fast speeds too, but some of them may not at all, and so we need to build these with the end users in mind.
And it is a moving target. Sometimes we call that the lowest common denominator. So we'll typically ask our customers what that lowest common denominator is, and in today's world I would say that 800 by 600 is maybe still the lowest common denominator, but very quickly going to 1024 by 768.
And the final one you mentioned is kind of a best practice is feedback. What do you mean by that?
Feedback is very, very important, especially in the transactional process. What I mean is if someone's doing a search on your site and you lead them down a path that actually has no results, and then they have to traverse back up that path, that can take a lot of time and make people very frustrated. If you're going to ask people for personal information, you have to very clearly articulate what you're giving them in return for you giving them your personal information. So feedback is a really important component to usability.
Well, thanks for going over these with us.
Sure.
Tell me about your business and what you do.
We're Viewmark. I'm the president of Viewmark, and we're a web development company in Denver, Colorado. We provide content management, usability analysis, and e-marketing services.
Thanks so much, Glenn, for sharing with us.
Absolutely.
This is Ralph Wilson with Web Marketing Today.